At every funeral, he stood like stone, not because he didn't care, but because he couldn't cry. When Noah's father died, he shook hands. When his mother passed, he folded the quilt she made him and quietly thanked the people who brought casseroles. And when they buried his little brother, his best friend, he stood there dry-eyed, fists deep in his pockets, like grief had forgotten him. People called it strength. You're so composed. You're holding everyone together. But inside, it felt like the windows were nailed shut. No air, no tears, no way out. He didn't know how to fall apart, and that terrified him more than the loss itself. For years, Noah carried that stillness like armor, until one day, in a quiet room, surrounded by strangers, someone else's pain cracked something open in him. And just like that, the tears came, not as a breakdown, but as a breakthrough. Because grief, it turns out, isn't something you get over, it's something you carry. And sometimes you cry not just for yourself, but so others know they can too. Noah was raised in a house where silence meant survival. His father was a man of few words and even fewer emotions. Tears were seen as weakness, softness as something to outgrow. From an early age, Noah learned how to be strong. When the family dog died, he was told, "Don't make a scene." When his grandmother passed, the only advice was, "Stay busy." So he stayed busy. He excelled in school, kept his room neat, never asked for more than he needed. And when feelings got too big, he packed them away. Grief, sadness, even joy, they all lived in a room he never entered. As he got older, people admired him for being so calm, so reliable. He was the one friends came to in crisis, the one who delivered eulogies without cracking, the one who kept the casseroles warm, the tissues stocked, and the mood steady. But there was a cost. After his mom died, he sat alone at the kitchen table, hands folded, eyes dry. He wasn't okay, but he didn't know how to say that, didn't know how to feel it, so he did what he always did. He cleaned up, he showed up, he moved on. Even when his little brother got sick, even when the decline came fast, even when Noah sat beside that hospital bed watching the machine slow, he still couldn't cry. Not at the funeral, not at the grave, not when he was finally alone. And yet, the grief was there, heavy, constant, a storm he kept trying to walk through without ever getting wet. What he didn't realize was that numbness wasn't strength. It was just freezing, and eventually even the strongest ice has to thaw. It happened on a Tuesday, not a special date, not an anniversary, just a Tuesday. Noah had started volunteering at a community grief group. He didn't go to speak. He wasn't ready for that. He went to help stack chairs, pour coffee, keep the space clean and quiet. He told himself he was giving back, but deep down he was still hiding. One evening, a woman came in late, clutching a photo. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. When her turn came, she tried to talk, but the words broke halfway out. She pressed the photo to her chest and whispered, "I don't know who I am without him." Noah didn't mean to react, but something inside him shifted. His throat tightened. His hands trembled. He turned away, but it was too late. The dam had cracked. He left the room, breathing hard, leaned against the wall like it might hold him up. And in the quiet of that hallway, with only a vending machine humming nearby, he felt it. Not a sob, not a scream, just one tear, then another. For the first time since his brother's death, he cried. And in that fragile unraveling, he realized something. The grief he had buried hadn't disappeared. It had just been waiting, patient, faithful. He thought crime would break him, but it didn't. It broke the silence, and in that silence, he finally heard what he'd been missing all along. Noah didn't go back to the group right away. The tears had shaken something loose in him, and he wasn't sure who he was without the numbness. It was like waking up in a room you didn't remember falling asleep in. Everything familiar looked different, sharper, softer, real, so he took it slow. He started journaling, not about his brother or his parents, but about not knowing how to talk about them. He wrote down questions like, why do I feel guilty for feeling now? Why was silence easier than sadness? Who taught me that pain should be hidden? Then one night, he walked back into the grief group. He sat in the back, didn't pour the coffee, didn't stack the chairs, he just listened. And that night, someone else shared something small. A man who said, I haven't cried since my wife passed. I think I'm broken. Noah didn't speak right away, but he raised his hand. His voice was quiet, a little rough, and all he said was, you're not broken. I thought I was too. Heads turned, not in shock, but in recognition. From then on, something shifted. Noah started speaking more, first once a week, then more often. Not with big speeches, just truths. He talked about the guilt of grieving wrong, the myth of moving on, how sometimes the bravest thing you can do is sit with someone in silence. He took a peer support class. He became trained in trauma-informed care, not because he wanted to be a counselor, but because he knew what it felt like to be seen only when you were strong. And then one day, a young man came up to him after group. He was 20 maybe, hood up, shoulders tense. He said, I haven't cried since my sister died. But tonight, I think I felt something. Noah didn't say, good job. He didn't try to fix it. He just nodded and replied, that's enough for today. For a while, Noah found purpose in being the one who got it. He became the person others leaned on in their darkest hours. The gentle voice in the back of the room, the first one to say, it's okay if you don't know how to feel. But slowly, the weight of everyone else's pain began to blur with his own. He would leave group meetings exhausted, not from talking, but from holding too much. One night, a mother shared how her son took his own life. Noah listened quietly, but the images stayed with him. He couldn't sleep. He started skipping meals, turning off his phone. The numbness he thought he had escaped was circling back. It scared him to feel so full of emotion and yet so alone again. He considered quitting. Maybe he wasn't strong enough to do this work. Maybe he was just pretending. Then one evening, at a candlelight vigil for overdose victims, a woman he barely remembered approached him. She was holding her teenage daughter's hand. I just want to thank you, she said. You probably don't remember me, but the night you said grief has no right way, it kept me from leaving the group. It kept me from giving up. Noah didn't know what to say. He nodded, eyes stinging. And for once, he didn't fight the tears. He let them fall. Not because he was overwhelmed, but because he finally understood. His strength didn't come from not crying. It came from learning when to let go. That night, as candles flickered against the wind, he looked around and saw something he hadn't seen before. A community he helped create. Not by fixing anyone, but by showing them they didn't have to be fixed at all. Noah never set out to lead anything. He didn't wear a badge. He didn't speak from a stage. He never called himself a healer. But slowly, his presence began to shift the room. He helped the grief group evolve, not into a place of fixing, but a space for feeling. People stopped coming just for advice. They came for honesty. They came because they knew they could fall apart there and still be welcome. One member started a project writing letters to lost loved ones. Another began offering grief writing workshops at the local library. Noah helped edit their flyers, sat in the back row, encouraged gently. Soon, more spaces like theirs began popping up across the city. Hospice centers reached out. A high school invited Noah to speak about emotional literacy to young men who'd been taught to be tough. He told them what he wished someone had told him. It's not crying that makes you weak, it's pretending you don't need to. Some of them laughed nervously, others looked away, but one stayed after, eyes glassy, and whispered, "Thank you." And that's what Noah came to understand about legacy. It's not about being remembered, it's about helping others remember themselves, their softness, their sorrow, their capacity to heal. The men in his family never talked about their grief, but now, generations later, Noah had become something they never were allowed to be: open, present, free. Noah once believed tears were the finish line of grief, that crime would mean closure. But now he knows grief isn't a race, it's a companion. Some days it walks beside you, other days it's a shadow at your back, and sometimes it's just the quiet in your chest when the room goes still. Looking back, Noah no longer wishes he'd cried sooner. He understands now that his silence was a kind of survival. He gave himself the time he needed, and when the tears finally came, they didn't erase his pain. They gave it shape. Grief didn't make him less of a man. It made him more human, more whole. And the truth he learned, one tear at a time, is this: we don't have to wait until we're okay to be there for someone else. Sometimes being not okay together is the first step toward healing. Noah doesn't cry every day, but he's no longer afraid to, because now he knows. Every tear is a thread in something larger, a tapestry of love that loss can't take away. Years from now, no one may remember Noah's name. They may not know about the boy who sat silent in grief circles, or the man who spoke truth with trembling hands. They won't see the tears that never came, or the courage it took to let them fall when they finally did. But somewhere in a town that once felt too quiet, there's a bench by the river with a small metal plaque. It doesn't say much, just 5 words. It's okay to feel this. Noah didn't choose the words. Someone else in the group had them etched there after he moved away. But they were his legacy all the same. A father sits there sometimes after therapy. A widow visits on her anniversary. A teenager with shaken hands once traced the letters and whispered, "I thought it was just me." That's the thing about grief. We think it isolates. But when we name it, when we let it breathe, it becomes a bridge. And across that bridge, someone who couldn't cry might learn finally that they're not alone. If this story touched something tender in you, you're not alone. Maybe you've carried grief quietly. Maybe you've been the strong one until you couldn't be. Or maybe, like Noah, you're just now learning that feeling is not a failure. If you've ever struggled to cry or found strength in someone else's tears, share your story below. You never know who it might comfort. And if you believe the world needs more safe spaces to feel, more stories that say it's okay to not be okay, please like this video, subscribe to Able in Every Way, and share this with someone who's been holding it all in. Together, we can rewrite what it means to be strong. One tear, one truth, one human at a time.